Now, so you are live on stream. Welcome on in, Bastu, THD, Kexman. How you guys all doing today? You good?
Feeling good, feeling good.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah?
It's the
Excellent.
coldest day in Florida this year.
Oh, yeah?
Coldest day in Florida, so it's still about, what, 80 degrees Fahrenheit? Like 30 degrees centigrade?
Still gonna be sweating.
65.
Well, there you go. Okay, I think 65 is still reasonably hot. You don't have a sweater on, so I think you're good. So, obviously there's some big news, guys. I wanted to start us off by getting into WoW systems, but there's been some big news today with the Microsoft acquisition of Activision Blizzard, or it looks like that's going to be what's happening. I just want to immediately just get a couple thoughts from each of you. We won't spend too much time on it, but I think this is going to be relative to the conversation that we're going to be having today when it comes to WoW systems, because this could have a direct impact on the way that World of Warcraft is developed and produced in, you know, maybe not for this expansion, maybe not 10.0, but 11.0, we should expect some of these changes start coming through. So, Bastu, do you have any kind of overarching thoughts on this?
I mean, it's hard to say what it's going to mean yet, right? Like, something that I've read a lot about on Twitter is that, you know, whenever Microsoft has acquired a company that, or a gaming studio, it hasn't really changed the trajectory much. Instead, they kind of just fund them and let them do what they want without getting too involved. So I'm hoping, obviously, I hope for the best. You know, I hope that they can pump some money into the studio and, you know, bring back some of the better features of the company. But yeah, I mean, it's yet to see. I'm wishful though. So,
Wishful,
yeah.
maybe optimistic. Should I tick
Yeah,
for that?
yeah. Glass half full.
Okay,
I'll take that.
that's
take
good.
That opinion.
And what about you, THD? Have you got any thoughts? Is this, you know, are we going to see Microsoft limit? Oh, is this going to affect JG Beansworth in any way?
Man, I mean, I guess they leaked it, huh? Microsoft limit. Who could have seen that one coming? I mean, will it affect us? Probably in some way, I would imagine, right? But I don't think anyone knew besides the higher ups, right? So.
What do you think it's going to have as, like, in terms of, you know, similar to what I asked Basti, like, do you think it's going to have an effect on WoW? Like, are you positive about it? Are you worried about it? Are you negative about it?
I mean, ultimately, I don't know what sort of effect it would have on WoW. I guess you could say, when's Bobby leaving? But I don't think it'll have an effect much on WoW at all. I mean, could, but kind of like too hard to tell really what it will do, just based off of like being under a different company, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's early days, right? It is hard to tell, and I guess Kexman, have you got any thoughts as well?
Yes. I think probably the most, obviously a lot of people are talking about what's going to happen, you know, what does this mean for WoW, what does this mean for Activision Blizzard. I think the most important thing to remember is that technically they haven't bought it yet, they haven't done anything. This is effectively Microsoft saying we have intentions to buy this, and they've said that it will be complete by the end of the fiscal year 2023, I think it was, which I think is June 30th. So that effectively means that until that happens, until at the very latest June 30th, Microsoft can do nothing with WoW. They can do nothing with Activision Blizzard in any way, shape, or form. They can't change anything that the company does. So at this point in time, Activision Blizzard is technically an independent company. They can do whatever they want. They can change things however they wish. They're not going to, because it'll affect the sale. I think the second thing and the most important thing is, you know, if Microsoft are clever, they will fire Bobby Kotick, preferably into the sun, because that man needs to go. But what I think you'll see happen is they won't change anything. And Bobby Kotick, if Bobby Kotick left as CEO now, it would be bad for both Activision Blizzard and Microsoft, because again, that's something that can affect the sale. We'll probably see Bobby Kotick staying on as CEO until the merger actually happens, and then at that point, he will probably be gone. I imagine they will, if Microsoft are clever, there will be a pretty big overhaul of the complete, you know, C-suite of Activision Blizzard. And as mentioned, they've been pretty hands off with a lot of the studios. So fingers crossed they can kind of be, I suppose, help change the culture that we currently see in Activision Blizzard, but also allow Blizzard a little bit of freedom to kind of do what they want to without, as mentioned, that that meddling that we have heard of sort of like the higher ups.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, I would say that just Bobby going like day one right now probably would cause some upheaval, but I think ultimately that's probably the long-term goal of the plan. Who knows? I mean, I don't know. I've just heard from the employees that they want him gone, and I'm there to kind of, I would be inclined to support the employees in this matter. I would just say myself that I think for many of us, we can't really tell whether this is a positive thing or not, but in the short term and the long term, I just hope that the developers out there, I mean, their jobs are on the line here. Some of them might get fired. There might be mass layoffs. There might not be. Normally, when a company is acquired, you want to make your 70 billion back. How are you going to make your 70 billion back? Well, getting rid of a large amount of employees is normally a good way to start earning some money back and cutting some of the dead weight, whatever that may be. So I'm worried for the developers there, but
I think in a more light-hearted note in regards to this takeover, it was obviously I think it's $68.7 billion. I think is the current number that's being bandied around as how much they're buying for it, and there was some math that was done, initial math that was done by Mr. GM on Twitter, saying that so that would effectively give you just over 3.4 million WoW tokens, which would equate to around about 690 trillion in-game gold. And for those of you wondering how many long boys you could purchase with that, the number is 138 million.
Okay.
Quite a lot.
You can't purchase that many long boys though.
Yeah, well, and also, do they actually sell for 5 million now? Because it's on the black market auction house.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
10 million.
Surely they're probably capped at 10 million.
Yeah, it's probably half that.
Only half.
Yeah.
I've done the math, okay? It's that, like, don't come in here with these sort of things. I thought I sounded really cool with that, and then immediately I've just been horrifically shot down.
When you said that it's being sold for 68.7 million, I thought you were gonna say we've done some numbers and Activision are actually asking for an extra 300 million to make it a nice clean 69 billion. And I was ready to walk out the room. Like, I was already prepping for that, but you actually went in a different way. But yeah, right. So I think that kind of covers a little bit of the Microsoft stuff. Just, hopefully the developers and stuff, we're wishing you for your job security and everything like that. And let's see how this all plays out. But let's get in now to WoW systems and talk about the actual matter at hand that we want to cover here today. So I'll start us off with just like a nice warm-up question. Starting with you, THD. What is your favorite system that's been added to WoW? Like, when we're actually talking about systems as well, chat, I mean, this is covering anything from, technically you could talk about Arena as a system, Raiding as a system, Mythic Plus is technically systems, but we're specifically trying to focus in on things like Legendaries, Soulbinds, Conduits, corruption gear, more so these things as systems. So THD, is there a favorite system that you have that's been added to WoW in its history?
Can I just cut in before THD speaks and say that if he says islands, I will leave.
It's not going to be islands.
No, then
Okay.
Feel free. Go ahead.
It's akin to it.
AP.
Amen. But AP, if it's implemented well. AP in Legion was good. AP in BFA, not as good. Right? Because in Legion, you had artifact weapons. And artifact weapons were quite literally, you unlock the trait and it was spec-specific increase. It was basically like mini tier bonuses the whole way through. Right? And that felt great to get. And every single level, you got something. Whereas with BFA AP, it was, you were re-unlocking the same traits for Azerite armor just to equip it at a higher level. And your numbers on the amount of stats on your necklace went up by like 5 for like 8 DPS per level. And that's why AP, I like AP in Legion, but I don't like AP in BFA. But it's mostly just AP because of artifact weapons.
Okay, and I mean, I want to jump on that just really quick as well. Are you more of a fan of endless grinds, like something if you want to, there's a grind that you've got to achieve, but you could do it in a week if you absolutely no life it, or it can take like a month if you just play, more reasonably. You're more of a fan of that no lifing, do it 24 hours a day, for a week, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. Bastu, what about you? Have you got a system that you've? Don't say islands.
So I wasn't actually 100% sure, so I had to. I posted in our guild Discord to give me some inspiration. And something that actually came up a few times, and it made me think of how much I missed it, was having reforging. But to have reforging, obviously you had to have hit and expertise and stuff like that. I really enjoyed having a feel that you had to hit certain points and stats, like hit having a hit cap, for example, or defense cap in Wrath of Lich King on tanks, stuff like that. And as such, reforging. I mean, obviously it's been gone a very long time. So yeah, and I don't think anything like that will come back. But yeah, that was probably my favorite system, so to speak. Although I did very much like Azerite weapons in the... I didn't like how much the grind requirement was for some of them. But I did like, the power systems that came with it. But yeah. So I'll say reforging is number one.
Okay. Reforging. Okay, that's a good one. That's a good one. Hopefully that comes back one day. Please, Microsoft, give it to us. What about you, Kexman?
So there's a couple that spring to mind. I think if they'd have been implemented properly, island expeditions would be number one, but unfortunately they weren't. I love the idea of island expeditions. Yes, give me more of that. That's amazing. I love it. However, there's also legendaries, but done in the way of warlords and mists, where it was kind of like a story that you followed throughout the expansion. At the end, you get a legendary. There's a nice power spike there that comes along with it. I enjoyed that. However, my number one system that they've ever put in is something that doesn't even give you player power, and that would be transmog. Transmog as a system is incredible. Pretty much it's accessible to every single person. If you want to end up no life grinding for a specific thing, you can. I can't tell you how many times I've run Siege of Orgrimmar and I still don't have the goddamn Tusks of Manaroth. That needs to be fixed. But transmog as a system, I think, is something that is universal across everybody. And as we all know, a good transmog generally nets you about 5% of your DPS.
Yeah, and those around you. If you look really good, they feel good. It's
there's also it's a double-edged blade, because if you look bad, everybody else around you's like, oh, I don't really want to raid with this person. They look terrible. I don't, and then it just brings everybody down. Transmogs? I haven't seen Max's transmogs.
He plays a Lalafell in Final Fantasy though, so I know that there's something going on there with Max, and I didn't want to bring it up on stream though.
On his monk, he uses the old. It's like a druid-looking piece. It's like blue that has like antler horns.
Wait, he uses that piece? How in God's name did you guys get world first? If he's using that,
well, he's not in. So
I mean, you want to see some of them. I mean, you want to see some of them here. We'll link a few armories.
Yeah, Shark Shoes is also a demon.
Shark Shoes.
I can bring it up on stream, but I'd have to quickly just do a quick little pet. Oh, it's not loading for me.
Yeah, it's not even loading. It's that bad.
That bad. It won't even load.
I can take an image.
It's that bad. It won't even load.
Here, we'll take an image of the monk. That's the monk.
Oh, there we go.
I've seen Maxibabe running around on PTR, and
this is the rogue.
All right, I'll load these up for you, chat, so you can see what THD is talking about.
Oh, they're horrible.
Okay, so here's our monk. I think you guys should be able to see this. I mean, I feel like this
monk is hideous.
I feel like there's at least an effort here, but then this belt is just like, it's just random, and the legs, I feel like I don't mind it, but then he's just given up halfway through.
So you've got lime green and yellow shoes, maroon, red, and dark sort of like blue/black trousers. You've got a blue and grey belt. You've got a lime green with a red. That's horrible. Ugh.
Asmongold would be truly disappointed.
Wow,
oh, that's horrible.
There you go. That's what it takes to be a world first raider, chat. That's the levels of.
My transmogs are great.
I mean, you mentioned Lalafells in Final Fantasy XIV. The less said about Ugo Baby, the better. the less said about Ogo Baby. I mean, I made
What do you mean?
I made a Lalafell in Final Fantasy XIV as well. Admittedly, I created it and then realized it kind of looked a little bit like Rich Campbell after I made it, which was completely by mistake.
Well, you know, Rich
God.
Campbell is a good-looking man. That's not. There are worse things you could be looking like. But right, so I love the mug, by the way, Kexman. Can you just
thank
hold it
you.
up for us really quick? Just
Thank you.
I
Yeah,
get
so I
it.
was
It's
gonna say
big.
I saw it earlier.
It's a big mug.
I get
a big
it now.
mug for a big mug.
Right, so those are all you guys' favorite systems. So what we had reforging, we had transmog, THD. You said AP grind. Do you notice with the AP grind that it's always an AP? We're always grinding some kind of AP, and then we just can't escape it. But yeah, looking at Shadowlands systems, I personally feel like a lot of the time with Blizzard, it's not that they have bad systems per se. Some of them, you know, a bit hit or miss. But sometimes, like, it's more so the implementation, I feel, of some of these systems. And it feels like that's where they're letting themselves down. And actually, some of these systems aren't too bad. If you look at something like corruption was very fun for a lot of people, especially the more, like, I'm not going to say like casual, but people that weren't necessarily hardcore raiding and stuff, where, you know, if you get corruption screwed, then you're just not going to perform on certain bosses and whatnot, or you might lose your seat in a raid. You might lose your spot because you didn't get good corruption week 1. But corruption was then put on a vendor, and it had like a 5-week rotation, I believe it was. That seemed more of the issue rather than the corruption gear itself. So I feel like it's an implementation issue. Do you guys feel that this is the case, or do you think that outright some of their designs do have problems, or are you complimentary of their designs? And I'll come to you first, Bastu.
I agree with that. I think a lot of their systems from the outset, the whole general idea of it is pretty cool. I actually really enjoyed corruption once you were able to pick what you wanted. You know, so on my rogue I would have, like, you know, a verse set with gushing wounds. If I wanted to play PvP, I'd have like a haste set for PvE, and being able to grind that, and, like, you know, I know when I had to buy those and how many of the, I can't remember what they're called, visions I had to do. I also enjoyed visions that came with it. I think something that Blizzard seems to do again and again and again is they make the same mistake in that they put these systems behind too much of an annoying acquisition. Like, the route to getting to the good part of these systems has always seemed to be either too random or too long, too boring, which is obviously never fun for anyone. It's like Korthia. So shards, I mean, shards weren't exactly incredibly fun on gameplay, but you know, the fact that you had to wait months and months and months to get, like, the fully ranked ones, and, you know, just to get Korthia rep, it was this is a little bit of a different point, but something that Blizzard also does is, you know, this whole, they can't decide whether they want something to be reachable for the race to world first, or whether they want it to not be reachable, and then they seem to just go, we're just gonna hope it's not reachable. And then you have people like THD come along and just do it every day, and it's like, oh, it is reachable if you spend 3 hours doing it every day.
Yep, you break it.
But yeah, it's as if they don't realize that every single, like, thing that they implement is going to be like this, and yeah, kind of blaming it on the community, where they could just make a system that, you know, if you hardcore grind it, get it, like, completely done out of the way in like a week or 2, it would be great. You don't have to think about it. You get to, you know, live with the spoils of all your effort, and instead they just push it back and make it some long-winded grind that you have to spend hours on every day.
What was the grind at the beginning of? I think it may have been Castlanathra, it may have been Sod. We've been in the Moor for a long time now, but wasn't there a case where you guys started grinding? I can't remember what it was, but you were grinding for something, and then midway through the grind, like a week in or something, they massively. Oh, I think it was the rep grind, right? With
it was 2
Binari.
tiers ago.
Yeah,
It was 2 tiers ago. Yeah.
But you guys were like midway through the grind. It looked like it was an achievable grind, and then they massively increased the amount that you'd have to grind. And then
Yeah.
you guys had already been grinding for this for like weeks or something, or a week or so, and then it was like, oh, okay, it's unachievable. And it's like you'd already made progress on it and committed time to it, committed a lot of degenerate time to it during your raid progression, like gearing up for this raid to world first, and then it's like, oh, it's not achievable anymore. So it kind of just
I think that
screws
was
you over.
Korthia.
The Korthia?
No, it wasn't good. It was before when we were doing when we were running around killing rares in the Moor. So this was the first day. It was Castle Nathriel, where all the guilds had like full raid groups
Yeah.
full of teams like trying to kill all the rares in one day, which was just for Venari rep, right?
The way I remember that going though was wasn't it it went like this way. It was like the first few days, like people were like, I remember in our guild the first few days was like, oh, you don't have to do them all, just like do it, you know, just like get in there, you know, do a little bit. And then I was just, you know, I was in there looking at the rep that every mob gave. I went to a YouTube channel. There was this guy. He did the PTR, okay? And he killed every rare on the PTR and he uploaded to YouTube. This guy had like 20 views on a video, okay? And that was how I detected how much rep each rare gave. Was by watching this random guy's videos on YouTube. I just searched up the rare's name and his video came up with like 20 views. I was like, okay. And that one gives 80, and I plotted it all down on a map.
Seriously?
And then, yeah. And then I was like, okay, so these give the same amount of Eye of the Jailer because I downloaded the week or Eye of the Jailer bar to tell exactly how much each one gives. And then through that whole process, I just went and did all of that. And then I said, I got 1,500 rep in one day. And that was crazy because everyone's like, what? You can only get like 800 or 900. How did you get 1,500? I'm like, well, I did this. It took me like 3 hours.
Yeah.
So wait, hang on. Are you meaning to tell me that world first guilds do degenerate stuff? Like, is that surely not?
Yeah.
And then I was like, we should keep doing this. And it turns out if you kept doing it, you would have gotten sockets by a few days before Mythic. You did it from day one or on Mythic release. And before, the developers were saying it would take 6 weeks to get it, when in reality it took 3 to 4.
But they changed something, right? Can't remember what they changed. Oh,
Yeah.
it was that you couldn't gain rep once you were rank 5 or something. I can't remember
When
what it
you
exactly
when
was.
you got rank 5 and you reached 10 stacks, you couldn't gain rep anymore.
Yeah.
And if you logged out or exited them all for any reason
that
at rank
was it.
5, you would have gotten that thing. Because before, what people were doing was they would get to rank 5 and you'd log out and log back in to reset it and fight stuff, and you kept doing that until you cleared the map fully.
Yeah.
But they patched that a few days in, but it was still achievable even with that.
So
I think with systems like that, and I think the bit like there's two big problems here. Is number one is there is Blizzard have been time gating content since time immemorial. It has always happened. It's just changed the way that they've done it, and now it is behind this facade, effectively, if you will, of reputation. And then it's a case of this is the reputation. You can only get X amount per day because rares don't give any, and it's just daily quests that you do. Reputation as a system is outdated and desperately needs to be changed. If you're going to do something like if you're gonna attach a player power, big case in point, player legendaries, double legendaries. If you're going to tie that to something and you want to time gate it, do it to a campaign storyline. So it's a case of, yes, I know straight away X, this is when I will be able to get this. Instead of, I have to log in every single day and do all my dailies, and then if I'm very, very good and do all these dailies, then I will be able to get, on day 28 or whenever it is. Reputation as a whole is outdated, it needs to be changed. But that's another system. I think the other side of it, going back to sort of like the original question and how systems are sort of approached and how they look, implementation is a big one, but I think the other side of it as well is... and this could be controversial, but community, I suppose the best way, community interpretation of all of that. And a big case in point is, they take a look at, for example, what some of the top guilds in the world do. What, THD was just mentioning there, you do X amount of rep in a day by doing this really specific strat. And all of a sudden, it then becomes community interpretation of this is the way you have to do it. because there is player power tied to it, because there is something along those sort of lines. They see the top guilds doing it, which, you know, is absolutely something that they should be doing because they are on that cutting edge. But that doesn't necessarily mean that someone like me, who, you know, although I'm mythic raid, I'm nowhere near the level of these raiders. That's not the way I should be approaching the game. So it's kind of like trying. It's almost like looking at what Lewis Hamilton is doing and then getting into your Corsa and going, I have to drive like him. You know, no, it's a completely different thing entirely.
Yeah, I use that as an example a lot when somebody's like, oh, I have to play like the rank 1 player to do my like weekly 15 or to get my 1400 rating or to like heroic raid. And it's like, no, you don't have to do that. You're running your own race. But I think you pick up on an important point as well, Kexman, because the implementation, it depends on what Blizzard's trying to achieve. Because they have to allow for this race toward first thing and this degenerate gameplay that the top end raiders are going to do. And I think ultimately you do, as a developer, have to be aware that people are going to do that, not necessarily be considerate, because I'll be honest, like, you know, THD, Bastu, like, you guys are supposed to be pushing the limits, right? Sorry, not the limits, the JG Beansworth. You're supposed to be pushing the JG Beansworth of reality here. And but I think they should consider you when they're implementing things. But at the same time, something that you guys are going to achieve is not what the average player is going to achieve and what the average player is going to shoot for. So how much should they weigh in on? So I think a really good example of what I'm trying to say is you look at Mists of Ton of Scythe, right, as a dungeon. That dungeon, its time limit is very, very tight if you play the key the way it's intended and designed for. It's a very tight key, and you probably can't time it beyond like a 24, 25 for the average group doing it normally, right? But for top-end players who are doing weird trinket tricks and pulling with their hunter pets and this and that, and, you know, doing boss resets with Sargadon on Ingra, and doing really weird things that the developer didn't plan for, you have plenty of time, and you can time that key really easy in a lot of instances because you're doing these tricks. And I think that's a similar way of looking at how they implement other systems, things like time gates and reputation grinds and things. If people are playing the way that you guys are playing, then these grinds are going to be really easy. But if they're playing the way the average player is supposed to play, then they're going to be a long time. So how, if you're Blizzard, where do you put that on the scale? Do you just make it, do you account for the average player, or do you account for the top end raider?
So while I see the merits in what you're saying, and I agree with some of it, my problem is that I don't believe Blizzard look at it in a way that I don't think when they make the systems they do, that they think, oh, okay, these are exploitable to the point where we do them. You look at like Korthia as a perfect example, right? You had to go and farm like every single raid and do everything basically to almost get double the rep that you want. It's okay when you can do, like, say you have 10 daily quests to do, right? And so you do those 10 daily quests, and if you want to go ahead and do extra, it gives you an extra 10% or something. If you want to go kill some rares, you know, it gives you a tiny bit extra. But when they're putting in these things, it almost seems like they don't seem to realize that it will literally double the rep gain, and it makes things far more reachable than they should be. That's where my problem is with it. I think going these degenerate routes and doing all the extra things should be able to give you some sort of gain, but I don't think like doubling or tripling the rep gain you can get is like fair or good design at all, regardless of whether it's for a casual or a high-end raider.
Yeah.
I think the other side of it as well is that there is an idea, and a perfect example of this is Torghast. Now, Torghast, the way it is, I personally still enjoy Torghast. I think it's good fun. So I know some people don't. I think they try and implement these systems, and they try and have their cake and eat it at the same time. Trying to have something where it's a case of, okay, you can do Torghast for fun, but also it's tied to player power, and also it's the way to get legendary. It's just like, okay, what they should have done. There was an iteration of Torghast in the original when it first came out, or one of the first times it came out in the Shadowlands Alpha or Beta. I can't remember which one it was, and it was effectively just an endless mode. There was nothing tied to it. You just went through. You got as far as you possibly could, and players kept getting powers, enemies kept getting more difficult. Obviously, the scaling got a little bit high, and I think it ended at something like level 75 or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
72.
72. There we go. And it was great fun. Like, you were doing it for the fun of it. You weren't doing it because it gave you, or at least I was, you weren't doing it because it gave you, power for your legendary or anima power or something like that. It was just fun for you to do. It was a good way for you to learn about your characters as well, potentially, even though there are obviously various different effects going off. What they, if they'd have released that alongside also having something that is tied to Legendaries player power, you have the best of both worlds then. You don't have much work that you need to do. You've just got two separate things. One of them caps at, X point, and one of them doesn't. And you then have people that are able to do something for fun, and then people that are able to do something for actually player power, for player progression. And I think that's one thing that's almost lost, is that everything has to be for player progression. Sometimes you do just want to do something for fun, and Torghast was a perfect example of that. And another one, island expeditions. If I wanted to do island expeditions just for the fun of it, just to get maybe a little bit of transmog or a mount, it's taken them this long to do a solo queue for it. That should have been in from the start.
What do you think, THD? Like, I know we've had a lot of stuff going on there, and you haven't had a chance to weigh in for a little while. What are your thoughts on, like what Bastu and Kexman have been saying?
I mean, yeah. I like Torghast and I like islands. You know what I didn't like about Torghast and islands? Having to go there every week because I'm forced to. That's what most people would tell you about those systems, right? Is they like the system, but they don't like being told, you must go here every week. Do your 2 Torghast runs. Do your 3 islands for the weekly cap or whatever for the big AP bonus. Or just do 1,000 islands for the AP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No one likes, like, being told to go somewhere, right? And even then, there's, like, reputation grinds, right? Like, reputation grinds are dailies. I'll tell you, one of my favorite places that I've done recently is Boja. Now, you may not know what Boja is, the mystical land.
What's that?
It's a place in Final Fantasy.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's a zone. And you unlock other parts of the zone by leveling up in it. It's like a separate leveling system. And there's no cap. I went from rank 1 to rank 25 in 2 days.
Yeah.
Well,
because it's again, and like I said, reputation in WoW is an outdated system, and the idea of, and I think THD mentioned there that you're told to go do Torghast, you're told to go and do islands. And it's kind of one of those situations, the moment that somebody says you have to go and do that, or you sit there and you go, well, I'm not going to do it now. You've told me to do it, I don't want to do it now. Whereas if they just said, hey, we're introducing islands, you can go and you can get transmog, but you don't have to do them, but it gives you extra AP.
With islands,
absolutely, yes, let's go and do that.
The thing with me for islands is when it was tied to player power, I didn't want to do it because I knew it was an endless grind. Just like, I'll just do it at a reasonable rate, so I'm getting some power every week, but I'm not gonna go THD on it, right? But when they introduced the loot box that you got, you had the currency, right? You had the coins, and then you could the doubloons, and you could spend those doubloons on the randomized transmog crates that could have mounts and gear and all that kind of stuff that had no player power added to it. I went and did more islands then than I did across the whole expansion because I really wanted that Firekin set for Druid. And I wanted some of those mounts and things. And I loved doing it because it wasn't I wasn't forced to, right? Like you're saying, THC, like you say, Kexman, you're not forced to do these things. So this is a big question then leading into it. And Kexman, you kind of tapping on the door of it. But tying player power to some of these systems, do you guys just unanimously think that it's a bad idea? Because if you have a zone like Zereth Mortis, and you're saying, oh, you have to go here to farm the reputation to get your conduit upgrades to get your double legendaries, then that's the reason you're in that zone. All of the content is based around people unlocking this. So if you're somebody who doesn't really care about player power, you don't really care too much about raiding or PvP or whatever, you just want to explore the game in an MMO world or an MMORPG world, and you go to Zereth Mortis, you go, oh, what wonders do I have to unlock here? And it's like, oh, well, you get your second legendary. That is your sole reason for being there. So the raiders don't want to be there. The PvPers don't want to be there. The PvPers definitely don't want to be there. They like to stay in their little 2v2, you know, where they can. And the Mythic Plus players don't want to be there. And then it's not designed for the players that it's actually intended for. And the actual more casual audience, I don't mean to say casual, but you know what I mean, that the people that the content is intended for, they're getting screwed over because Blizzard's tying all this player power to it. But at the same time, if you don't have player power tied to it, then then what is the point in the zone? I'm going to pose that question to you. What is the point in that zone? What is the point in Torghast if you don't have player power attached to it? What is the point in these systems if there's no reason to do them?
What?
Fun.
That yeah. But that's on Blizzard, right? It's on Blizzard to give you motivation to go and do these things. Right now, there's like rough estimates of numbers, right? It looks like it's going to take you 28 days to get Legendaries, and then roughly double that ish to get to Exalted, which is for Conduits and stuff like that. You're going to have to spend 2 months in there daily to get to Exalted. How is anyone going to want to step foot in there ever again after 2 months if they've done that?
Yeah.
What should have been done is you know, ulterior motives. Having this motive of always having to be player power, you know, it's just this endless cycle that will never end of boring content that people just do because they have to. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm just repeating what everyone just said, but like, I mean, there's not really much else to say about it. Blizzard have to provide motivation to go do these things. It's not on the community to just go because there's nothing there, right? It's yeah.
I think best way that Zereth here's where Zereth Mortis could succeed is if you changed it so that double legendary doesn't come from reputation, double legendary comes from the story. If you want to time gate the double legendary, you put it on the campaign, make it so that it's week 5 of the campaign or whatever it is, or it's, you know, if you desperately want to have it so it's not accessible during Race to World First, put it on the campaign that's 3 weeks after Race to World First or something like that. What you would respectively imagine 3 weeks into Mythic, you would imagine the Race to World First is over. That's where you put double legendary. If you don't want to do that, then, and you want to tie it to rep, make it so that rep can be done as quickly as you want it to be done. As quickly as you want it to be done. Because
like endlessly farmable, right?
Yeah, endlessly farmable rep, so that you can immediately, like, if you want to, you can absolutely no life it, and you can get double legendary in 5 days, if you want to. And that's the key point. If you want to, it all comes down to player choice. Secondly, if you're going to have a rep like this in a zone where it does take 2 months to get to Exalted or something along those sort of lines, you add, you know, a bunch of mounts. You add some transmog onto there as well, so that players that want to come back and they do this, they can come back and do it. You know, people want transmog, people want mounts. If they want to be able to do that, again, you know, it's a case of make it so that it comes down to player choice. You know, at the moment, player choice is effectively, I have to play something I don't want to play. Whereas if you turn around and you say, okay, you now have a choice. Do you want to get these transmogs and mounts? Great, you can play every single day if you want. Do you want to get double legendaries? Okay, you can no life it in 5 days if you want, or you can save it for 6 months down the line because you are not raiding that often. There's a lot of various different things that you can do here. But at the end of the day, player choice is what's going to make a zone like this succeed. The moment you take that out of players' hands, it doesn't matter how colorful the zone is, it doesn't matter how good the content is, it's going to be looked upon negatively.
There are certain things they can do with that.
Oh yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, there are certain things they could do with that, and this is where you know, I've been playing Final Fantasy. Okay, so let's take some examples. Right, they have a weekly quest. Okay, the weekly quest gives you a big benefit. So if you want, you could just go there once a week, get a big benefit. There's some daily quests; those give a big benefit. But then there's also these events that occur every like 5 minutes. And if you really want, those events are not nearly as lucrative as the dailies or the weeklies, right? But if you really want, you could just keep doing those events every like 5 minutes, and effectively you get to do it as much as you want. This even helps casuals, right? Because sometimes there's a casual player, he's not going to spend the weekdays playing the game, but he comes out on the weekend and he's like, all right, I got 8 hours today. Got 8 hours. He logs in, he blasts the dailies, and then 30 minutes after he's like, well, don't got any more dailies. And then he's just left there for 7 hours wondering what to do.
Yeah, and it's still going to be behind. Whereas if you could play those 8 hours and you could endlessly farm, yeah, you're farming at a lesser rate, but you can still, comparative to what you would be doing, you can still gain a lot. I think that's important to note as well, is when we're talking about like casual players, right? Because if you do have these daily requirements to log into the game to go to these zones or go to Torghast and stuff, and you've got to do this daily, for people that can't commit to that, it feels really bad, because casual does not mean that you don't like that you're not good. It just means that you might not be able to dedicate the consistent time, right? You might have an irregular schedule, so you can play a couple days a week or at odd hours or odd timings. You should still be able to go in, and if you want to play the game at a hardcore level for 3 hours a week, you should be able to do that. And I think that's definitely like, is that kind of what you're touching on as well, THD there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, also there was items in the past that did this too. In Cataclysm, there was those rep tabards.
Yeah.
Where if you did dungeons and stuff, you got reputation with whatever faction, you know, those tabards were available for. If you wanted to.
Speaking of tabards and that sort of stuff, Cataclysm, a perfect example of this. Reputation, for those of you that are absolute boomers like myself and played back in Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King, heroic dungeons were effectively locked behind reputation. You had to get to honored reputation. I believe it was honored or revered.
Yeah, honored, I think.
One, to basically gain access to the heroic version of that particular dungeon that was assigned to. And again, it was one of those situations where it was a case of, normally, now if they implemented that now these days, there would be like a cap on how much reputation you could grind, and you would only have access to the dungeon at X period, X day.
They did that
after. Yeah, exactly.
I think they did that in Legion with Court of Stars and Arcway.
Yes, they did. You're correct. But yeah, but the difference in BC and Wrath was you could grind that out however you wanted. If you wanted to, you could just sit and you could do a dungeon for 6 hours to get to that level of rep, and at no point did that ever feel like at no point did it ever feel like I was playing the game with one hand tied behind my back, not being able to do what I wanted to do. Whereas now, you know, that is kind of the case. And again, it's just another example of how reputation can be done correctly if they pulled the ripcord. Just pulled the ripcord.
So let me
Oh no, it's returned.
Let me hit with a counter point then. I know that WoW esports, especially with the TGP or the Great Push, I know that they're leaning more towards healthy gaming and, you know, regular breaks, and not this idea of no-lifing is looked at poorly because of how unhealthy it is, right? Do you guys think that these daily login requirements rather than these endless grinds are better and healthier as a way of gaming?
I mean, at the end of the
I'm probably
day,
asking the wrong people.
I think daily login is worse than.
Yeah.
You think?
I would say so. It's unhealthy for the game and for, it's unhealthy for the game long term, and I suppose it's technically unhealthy. You know, it helps form a habit. Whereas as THD said, you know, if you turn around and you say, hey, I work really hard during the week, I don't have a lot of time, but guess what? I've got 8 hours on a Saturday where I can sit down and catch up on everything. You can't do that now. Whereas before you could do. And the other side of it as well is kind of comes down to the person that's playing as well. You know, just because you've only got 15 minutes worth of dailies doesn't mean that people don't still sit there and play for 8 hours a day.
Yeah, true.
You sit and run around Oribos for 7 hours.
Hey, have you been watching my stream, Bastu?
Hey, you've got to get your lap time down, surely.
Yeah.
I mean, there are also ways to implement a daily cap, but have it be grindable in some way if you miss days. Right?
Yeah.
Going back to Final Fantasy, they have a system where if you miss, like, there's this thing called leave quests or whatever. They stock up, right, up to 100 or something, and you get like 4 a day. So
well, I think someone. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, if you could do like 50 in a day, and then every day you'll get 4, you'll get 4, you'll get 4, you'll get 4. So you're not technically having to do 4 every day, but instead you could do 100 in a day, then 100 in like 3 weeks or whenever the heck it fully fills up again.
I think a good example of this in a way is someone, and I'm not sure how you would implement it, but if you're going to have something like this, You know, if Blizzard are determined to have double legendaries behind a rep grind that you don't actually grind, you just have to log in daily for 15 minutes a day. If they want to do something like that, then you do something similar to callings, where you don't have to log in every single day.
3 days.
Yeah, every 3 days. Or, you know, you could even, extend the system out to a week, for example. Like the person that maybe has a family, still enjoys playing WoW, you know, can't log in during the week, but he has X amount of time on the weekends. And all of a sudden he's logged in and he hasn't missed out on anything. He's still caught up with everybody else. You know, I don't quite know how you'd implement it because you can only have X amount of daily quests in, but you know, having something similar to that, I think would help if they do want to go into that daily login grind.
I mean, the assaults were pretty good with that, I think. I can't remember the exact name, but you know, for in corruption times, where you know half the week would be it invaded one part of Oldham and the next part it invaded the other. I think that was kind of cool on that because you know you could only do the quest once. I mean, sure there was like dailies or whatever, but or the world quests, but the actual quests you could only do once, and you know it was like once every half week. And like that, I thought was pretty cool because you know I could do so I want to do it on 4 or 5 characters. One day I can do it on this character, and then the next day I can do 3 characters in a row. And I you know I had no I wasn't set to I have to log in every single day and slave away. So
yeah, exactly.
Sorry, did you just say that you used to do those assaults on like 6 or 7 characters?
Yeah, we all did.
Yeah,
we play a different game side.
Yeah,
we play a different game.
I had full corruptions on like 8 characters or something. I loved it. I loved it. I played so much. I literally played so much during that time. And now
I remember doing those six world quests and those 4 dailies.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I feel bad because I recently, for those people that don't know, I have played the same Tauren warrior for 17 years. Like, I don't have any, it's the same Tauren warrior I've played for 17 years, and just recently I've rolled a hunter, you'll be proud, Si, and a gnome warlock, my first ever alliance character. And it's so weird to me playing them, and because they're ranged, and it's really, really strange, but also sit there and going, if I get these to level cap, I'm going to actually have to do the content 3 times now. Yeah. Like that feels so weird to me.
Well, this is actually a really good segue because I was gonna bring up the presence of alt-friendliness and how a lot of these systems are not always the most alt-friendly. And I don't know if you guys have seen it, but there's a video that Venruki put out, and it's a really good video. It's 5 minutes long on his YouTube, and it's literally him just talking to a stream about an interaction that he had where he was playing PvP, not TLDR. You should still go watch the video, but Venruki says he's playing PvP and he sees a guy 1400 rating or 1200 rating, needs to get up to like 1400 to get some PvP gear or something like that, get his rating. So he decides he's going to help this guy out. Doing a few games with the guy, gets up to rating, and then notices that this guy doesn't have a legendary equipped, doesn't have a covenant even, doesn't have any Soulbinds or anything like that, and he keeps playing with this guy, but he's like, gets on Discord with him and is like, hey, do you have your legendary? Do you have these things? He goes, no. How do I get them? So Venruki gets on Discord with this guy, explains all of the things that this guy has to do. Well, you got to go do your Torghast, and that'll get you your legendary. You got to farm the currency. Oh, and then you got to go get your conduits, and you grind those from various areas. You've got to go and unlock your Soulbind, and you got to do the 9 chapters of the campaign. And the guy just quit. The guy was like, nah, I don't want to do that. I just want to do arena, you know, like, and I think whether you're an alt player, because if you play alts, you have to do that multiple times for each character, right? But if you're a new player as well, especially, you've still got to do all those things. You come into this game now, you get a level 60 boost, thanks mom's credit card, and then you're welcomed into all of these things that you've got to catch up on. And it feels like we just have a really big system bloat for alts, for new players, and shit, even for mains, dude. I don't want to do a month grind. Like, I'm too old for this. I'm 28. I'm losing my hair as is. I can't do that. But you know, what do you guys think when it comes to those situations? I'll start with you, THD, if you got any thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that renown, what is it? I think the renown item is if you reached renown 80 on one character, you can boost to 40. But you need to reach
Yes.
renown 80 in order to boost to 40.
Yeah, that's correct.
You know, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know why you can't just get renown 60 off the bat. That unlocks your whole soulbind tree, and after that, it's just minor upgrades like empowered conduits. Not sure why, you started renown 1 still. Could make more sense, but also the problem is, right, in order to get renown, what are you gonna have to do? So if you're starting at renown 1 and you're a new player coming in and you're a renown 1, what you're gonna have to do is either A, slow roll it and do callings, world bosses, a raid clear, right? Weekly cap stuff. Or you could slam bang Torghast layer 9 100 times. And that might be what you want to do.
But the other side of that, though, is if you are a brand new player coming in, is that brand new player going to be able to slam Torghast layer 9? They're not going to have the gear or the knowledge.
Well, no, because they'll have to unlock layer 9.
Well, yeah, exactly. So they might not even get there.
Because
So
remember, they have to go from layer 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7, then to 8, then to 9. And then they probably won't have the gear to slam bang it.
I don't think the devs have an easy solution here. I mean, I echo a lot of what Vimariki said in the video, and I it's very relatable to me because my best friends that I grew up with playing WoW, none of them play anymore. Yeah, they're all they have jobs and they come home and it's like, I mean, they say to me, it's like, what's the point? Like, we want to play some arena together. What the hell is the point that they, if we wanted to play arena with each other now, and they're like level 50 or whatever, the grind that they have to go through just to have some like semblance of a little bit of player power is so unbelievably ridiculous that they're just completely put off. Like, we've planned for seasons to go play PvP together, like we used to when we were younger, and it's just pointless because, I mean, they'll never reach the point where it's, they have to get, as you said, legendaries and conduits and all the eye level from all the PvP gear, which also takes a metric crap ton to grind, to the honor.
Thank you for being mindful of the sponsors there on that one, Bastu.
Yeah,
I don't know why the PvP gear isn't. You buy it and then it's just the highest item level in PvP combat.
Yeah.
But in PvE, if you want, you can upgrade it, and it's not. At least you have some crossover there, and you're not horribly destroyed in PvP. Because right now, what happens is people buy the PvP gear, it's like 20 item levels less, and you just get destroyed. You get like 2 banged by a rep paladin. You just boom, boom, dead. See ya.
But I don't know what the solution is, Like, while it's all well and good, and I and plenty of other members of the community give the devs a lot of shit, I don't know how to fix it. How do you get to the point where the game still feels like, you've done enough to be worthy of having, like all the cool gear and stuff like that, without it being too much of a struggle? It would almost feel worse if you could make a character almost like a tournament round, make any class you want and be done within 30 minutes and then get to go into arena. At that point, you're not invested at all. So what is the point where, it feels like it's, a short enough time that it's still worthy?
Yeah, I think it's really tough. But for PvP specifically, like, I think that sort of system might work in like a PvE environment, but in a PvP environment, it's like slightly different, right? Like, I think most, I'm not sure how like other MMOs handle it, but the only like 2 that I know of is in Lost Ark, your stats are pretty much, it's like equalized.
Mm-hmm.
In Final Fantasy, if you zone into PvP, it's all equalized.
Guild
It was
Wars,
similar to that for Legion.
Guild Wars, you just make a PvP character, right? It's separate from PvE. So you have max gear and everything, right?
Yeah, it seems to be that most people in other games for PvP simply just want an equal playing field, and they want skill to determine what is better in PvP versus gear. Now, obviously, you come into like the realm of the RPG, right? It's like, oh, but the gear progression, all that, right?
I think the best
tough.
way of doing it, I think you hinted at it there, THD. You go into PvP and boom, you effectively normalize stats, or you have X item level, if you will, which then gains you the sort of like basically same sort of stats across the board. I would have it so that you would have PvP gear that you would be able to get with the particular stats that you wanted on them, whether you do that for gold or something like that, but you don't tie it to any sort of like PvP stuff. And then you have your set brackets, and then each of those brackets is effectively an item level. So the first bracket that you go into is like your lowest item level. The next one is the next highest item level. Then you have the next highest item level. So then it becomes about skill. But then the further up you go in those brackets, the more powerful you also feel. But then you're also going up against people that have the same item level. So once again, skill becomes more important until you get to that top tier. Within each of those rankings, you then also have a set amount of, whether you put mounts, titles, transmogs, toys, anything along those sort of lines attached to it. So again, there is a reward for getting to that level, but at the same time, it's not some sort of horrifically bloated system. It's very much just a case of you have this gear that has your best stats. Now PvP becomes about skill. Now go and test your skill. I mean, PvE is a slightly different beast to PvP, but if I was to look at PvP, that's how I would do it personally. That would make it so that it's quite easy to get into, but to get to the higher levels, you've got to really work at it and become a skillful player.
So you're saying if like you're in a 1600 game, you'd be like 240 item level, but if you were in like a 2100 game, you'd be like 259?
Yeah, basically. And it kind of scales up like that. So again, the further up the brackets you go, you get that feeling of, oh, my character has become more powerful. But then you're
that
also,
that would feel so bad if you drop rating and your gear item level goes down.
It would just be based on the game level you're playing, right?
Yeah. But then that's part of it. If you have dropped out, then clearly
well, you get demoted in like League and stuff, right? I mean,
exactly.
I play TFT and you don't get demoted. Like I'm plat 4 and I hit 0 LP and I don't go into gold 1. I'm like, oh, thank God. But yeah, you get demotions in other.
You get demoted, and yeah, your gear score goes down, but it gives you a reason for them to push on high, push on harder. And unfortunately, there becomes a point, we discuss about systems and what happens. That there has to be something along the lines of, okay, you're not necessarily ready to be in that gear level. You've got a lot that you need to be learning, and if someone's switching between a couple of them, slowly but surely, if you continue to PvP, you do get better at it. And it's one of those things that I think could probably quite, I wouldn't say it would easily solve PvP, but at the end of the day, it makes it so that it is
more skill based and stuff.
Yeah, more skill based and I suppose fairer when it comes to power, because if you want to get into PvP and you don't have the time to grind out your honor and get all your gear and everything like that, it's an uphill battle. You're never going to do it. But if you can have the same quote unquote like normalized gear as everybody else, at the very least, you're on an even playing field with everybody. It then just becomes about skill.
The topic we're talking about relates super well to the point you said earlier, Si, about how maybe the problem with the systems isn't what the system is, but how they're implemented. And it basically all boils down to a lot of these things have a far too high barrier to entry, right? Once you're in the system and you're fully progressed, the system's fine. But it's about the time from going from 0 power to the power that's you even have any sort of fun doing it. There's too many steps along the way that are just as if they're chores and just aren't fun, right? There's too many stepping stones that you have to take to get to the point you want to. And I think regardless of what system it is, this is like the time spent to get there just has to be shorter.
Yeah, I mean, because if you
or
look
at least less time gated.
If you look at domination as a system, I think that is a perfect example of what you're talking about, Bastu, where 2 weeks ago, I had level 4 or rank 3 gems, and I was getting green and like gray percentiles on my hunter. all that's changed in those 2 weeks or 3 weeks is that I've now got rank 5. And now I'm getting top logs, and I'm getting like top 15 and top 20 logs and stuff like that. And like my logs are improving drastically, right? Yes, I play Survival Hunter. Oh yeah, 15 out of 15. Okay, ha 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 ha. But I haven't changed in my abilities. I've just gotten the systems. Now it is an RPG, so I do think that you need to have some systems in place. But is it a question of there are too many systems, right? You've got domination gear, you've got conduits, you then randomly upgrade your conduits, and you have a currency to be able to buy them. Then you've got your legendaries, and you have to upgrade your legendaries as well, which costs gold. And then you have, yeah, domination gems, which you have to upgrade. And I feel like that's fine when you're on your main character, but after 3 months and you're in the expansion, and oh, I want to go play something else, and I want to go help out my raid team and play something else, you've got to level up your domination gear, and you've got to start again all from scratch. And you've got to level up your domination gems and stuff, and it's weeks. It's like something like 6 weeks or something to fully upgrade one set of domination gems. But once you have all your domination gems upgraded, feels good because you're like, oh, is Unholy better on this boss, or Frost, or I can move this around on Sylvanas. I'll put the absorb in and get rid of the blood here, and you have a little bit of customization, and it feels okay. It doesn't feel great. I don't love the system, but it doesn't feel bad. But it's
I would say talking about domination sockets is a weird one, because for my money, and I don't know whether anybody agrees with me on this, domination sockets and domination gems is the singular worst system the Blizzard devs have ever included. The idea behind it, not a terrible idea, but the implementation of it and the way it was kind of brought about, it's probably the worst thing they've ever done.
You don't need to tell me that one.
Yeah, I can't say it's very special. I mean, you don't even feel much more powerful. Like, you don't notice any difference.
If you played without a damage meter, you wouldn't notice it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There is no interaction with it. But I think what THD said, I think time gating can work, but what THD said, about how time gating, the time gate is the same for everyone, so you can catch up, where you can have like the 4 dailies a day, but they stack up, and then if you wait 10 days, you can do 40 in one go. I think time gating is perfectly well and good in MMOs or RPGs or whatever, and I think it can work as long as it's like how the LFR system is released. How they release 1 wing per week. That sort of time gating is okay when you're just given the content in small parts, but then everyone's there, that like everyone is on the same part. I think that's okay, but
time-gated raid content. Speaking of boomers, Wrath of the Lich King, Ice Crown Citadel.
Was that time-gated?
Yes. The first ones.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, Ice Crown Citadel was time-gated. The first 4 bosses were available. Then you had a 1 week or 2 week wait, and then each wing unlocked. And then it worked
like LFR pretty much before all difficulties.
Yeah, exactly.
Similar to what they're doing next tier for heroic.
Kind of similar, but next tier's just for like heroic, really, right?
Normal.
Yeah. And then as soon as
you'd basically look at the way LFR works now, and that's kind of how it worked in ICC, but for all difficulties. It was also limited attempts, though.
So I
love that 50 attempts.
I'm aware that we're probably going to be running low on time soon, right? We've probably got chat another 25 minutes or so, and we are going to do a Q&A for the last 10 minutes. So if you have any questions, please start compiling those. Don't put them in the chat yet, but when we start doing the Q&A, then you can start asking those. So just if you think of any questions, get those ready for me, for any of the guests, or just for all of us at once. That's fine. But something that I want to ask you guys then, a couple of the topics I want to go through is, have the grinds in World of Warcraft changed over time, right? Because you guys are saying, Bastu, you're saying, I don't know how you fixed the grind needed in these systems, but I don't know anyone that's still raiding for the gear. I don't know anyone that's playing PvP for a grind. I don't know that anyone that's doing Mythic Plus for the gear unlock there. Everyone is doing all of these external systems so then they can do the thing that they want to do. I care about the number on Raider.io going up, right? So I'll do all this stuff just so the number goes up, and I'll play keys 10 hours a day. So if Blizzard are that bothered about login metrics and all that kind of stuff, could we just swap the grind from farming conduits and farming legendaries to instead, hey, it's easier to acquire some of these things. We have fewer systems now, so it's not all muddled and difficult to balance. Go PvP and try and hit Glad and spend 10 hours a day whacking at that. Go and do Mythic Plus and try and grind that rank 1 title or top 0.5 title. Go and raid on multiple characters, right? Like, go with your guild and be able to run Mythic on a few different characters or whatever. I mean, raiding's a bit of a weird one because normally you're locked in at like 3 hours a day for a couple of days, but do you think that we could change the way in which we grind in the game and still make Blizzard happy with their login metrics? And Kexman, you seem passionate about that one. I'll come to you first, I guess.
I think we will see that happen. I think we'll see that happen in the next expansion, and I think the reason for that is because we have the Mythic Plus score that is available now. I think we're going to see. I would hope that we have Blizzard learning from those mistakes and kind of cutting back down on the systems. With the Mythic Plus score, the fact they've added that title in there as well for Mythic Plus score, you've got PvP titles and mounts. I'd love to see them add mounts and transmog into Mythic Plus as well. I'd love to see stuff like that added in. Anytime you have a mount or a title or a transmog or a toy or anything along those anything along that tied to the prestige of doing something, I think that's a good thing. I think the other side of it as well is you're speaking about grinds and people grinding. I think that my biggest pet peeve when it comes to WoW is whenever you're talking to somebody about World of Warcraft that either used to play or does still play, and they say there's nothing to do. That's my biggest pet peeve, because unless you have got top rating in PvP, top rating in Mythic Plus, cutting edge, everything along those sort of lines, there is always something for you to do. Difference, it's different if they turn around and say, I don't want to do anything. Now that's the important thing, is the amount of times that you hear players say there's nothing to do. How many times are they actually saying, I don't want to do anything? And I think that's a big thing, is how do we reduce that? And I think, I think bringing in, I think grinds are a way to reduce that, but you have to make it so that the grind is worthwhile. And at this point in time, the grind does not feel worthwhile. It feels forced.
Okay. Yeah. Anything else that Tishy or Bastu, you guys got anything to jump in on there?
I mean, to jump on the Mythic, you're talking about the Mythic Plus thing, you go slam a bunch of keys, you go slam. Raid's kind of in this weird hole where you do your one raid a week with your guild, and then you can't ever do it again for that whole week. And there are times when reality is, right, we get that clear done on Tuesday, and then what about if I want to go help some other team? Or what about if I just want to pug? I mean, I think the Mythic Raid ID is kind of outdated in that sense, where you're locked to a specific ID on Mythic versus being locked to an X boss, right? Because right now what you have is, me and Bastu can say this, right? Like, you'll have a split run with like 22 people, 21 people, and you'll rotate one guy in and out every now and then, versus just having a run of the same people do the boss, and then it being on a per boss lockout system for your character versus an ID lockout.
Yeah, I mean, you change one person up per boss so that everyone gets 9 bosses in their box, in their weekly box, and then I don't know, they just don't get the boss because, and they can't like go do it somewhere else.
Yeah, it's impossible for them to go do it as well.
I mean, there are merits.
Leaning on this.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, I was just gonna say there are definitely benefits with the Mythic ID system, but I think there is a lot of problems, such as what THC mentioned. But yeah, go on, Kate.
I was going to say, you could have something in place where, if you kind of leaning off, and I don't like to compare Final Fantasy 14 and WoW a lot, because I think they're different enough games in that one thing that one game does and one thing that the other game does doesn't always necessarily translate over across really well. But the one thing that Final Fantasy 14 does is, if you go into a duty roulette or something along those sort of lines and somebody hasn't done it yet, you gain extra things for helping them. And adding something like that in, I think would also be an incredible thing that they could add in, and it expands the community. And another thing that would expand the community is taking down faction wars. So let's all queue together and also combine all of the WoW accounts into one. If I want to play with North American friends, I shouldn't have to buy a whole other account.
Yeah, I actually maintain 2 accounts so that I can play with American friends. I mean, it teaches. I have characters in Limit or JG
Yeah.
Beansworth.
Just spy, kick him
since,
out.
like,
He's
since-
a
I mean,
spy.
even then, it's I don't know why you can't transfer an EU account to NA.
Yeah,
That one's
I know,
a bit
yeah.
weird.
Yeah.
Like that one's just like, what? That doesn't make
Yeah.
any sense.
Take away if honestly if and I don't know if it would ever happen for 10.0, but if they did those 2 things, if they took away faction walls in regards to queuing for like Mythic Plus PvP and raids, and they combined pretty much like all the accounts so that if I wanted to I could go and play with North American friends and everything like that, honestly I think you would see a lot of people that would return to play with friends. I do believe that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a natural development of things, and I don't know why it doesn't exist now. I mean, I think the PTR is some of the most fun that you can have on World of Warcraft because you get an opportunity to play with people that you would never normally play with. And getting beta is so much fun because you see all types of people that you never normally see. Today on PTR, I was playing with Yellow, I think he's in Asta, right? I was playing with him. He's playing Survival Hunter, by the way. It's going to be OP next year. Just keep in mind.
I mean, that is true. That is true.
And I got to play with him, which is really cool.
Yeah.
While we're at
Tear of the Spear. Yeah.
Global raid release. For the love of God.
it's never gonna happen.
Global raid release. No, but here's my argument against it. They always say, "Oh, we don't want players to miss out, so we're not going to have the raid released at the same time because it would cut off players in certain time zones." If that's the case, why do you release the expansion at the same time across the globe?
Yep.
The one thing that has more content than a raid.
You know, TBC has it, by the way. I don't know if you play TBC actually. TBC has global raid release.
I know.
The TBC raids are released all at the same time.
Then they still have
I know.
different reset times, right?
Yeah.
Or is it all the same?
No, they have different reset times.
Yeah, it's just the same as normal Tuesday night for you, Tuesday morning for you, Wednesday morning for us. It's still the same on TBC.
You know,
Is that them hinting at it? Let's test it on TBC Classic, see how it goes.
I think the reason why they do it on TBC might be because they don't expect the race to last a week, and I think they would have to change the reset times to all be at the same time as well.
I don't think they do it
if
because
was going to do that.
Personally, I don't think anything is put into. I don't think they care about the race in that sense. They do care about the race in general a little bit, but I think when it comes to release times, I think it's because they release the raid on Tuesday where all the devs live, and any problems, any troubleshooting can be done by the devs, and then it's given to the EU like servers in a state where it's releasable. If they have to set up a global release time, obviously it means that they're trying to fix problems on multiple servers at once, where they can just fix it on one and then copy paste it to the other. I mean, you have a look, right? Often, like, Limit won't start raiding till like 5 p.m. because servers are down all day. And then it comes to EU, and we were in the raid by 9 a.m. because all the problems that the American servers had are gone because they just copy paste it from NA2EU.
Yeah, and that's actually really annoying to us.
NA beta testers, huh?
And that's why you have NA and EU servers merging into one world server, because then you're only dealing with one.
And we can all be beta testers.
Yeah,
it's like really annoying because like here's like a pretty good example, right? Like, let's say this is the problem with, like, if they do a global release, they'll have to change the reset times in some way. But I don't think that's like a big problem, right? Like, they always say, like, oh, you have these guilds that have been established for years. We raid Wednesday. We raid Thursday. It's like, okay, that's great.
Still do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Still raid Wednesday and Thursday. If they change the reset or something, I mean,
you'd potentially
the times a bit, maybe. Like,
well, you technically say you're a guild, and because everyone raids on Wednesday and you raid on Wednesday, you'd have certain world ranks. And then if people raided on Tuesday that were a worse guild than you, but you couldn't raid on that Tuesday, you had to stick to the Wednesday, then you technically potentially lose world ranks. But at the same time, bro, who cares? Make a global release. Like, I don't know. They should do it.
I think in that situation, if you were that caring over world ranks, you'd make it work.
Yeah, true.
But again,
Yeah.
there is no reason that they have given that is that is actually like, oh yeah, that makes sense. It's like, no, there's no reason why we can't have that. And another system, we're talking about systems that makes absolutely no sense. Why do we not have Master Looter back yet? All you
Amen.
need to do,
Dude, we
Master
almost
Looter-
lasted an hour and a half
Bastu,
without
Bastu.
bringing it up.
That's
Master
gonna come
Looter.
back.
Master
gonna
Looter
come
has
back,
to come
Bastu.
back.
That is some
Yep.
copium. That is
No,
copium.
it's not
Master Looter comes
I-
back, but is only available in guild groups. That's
No,
all
I mean-
Yeah, I
you
mean,
need to have.
the system was great in Legion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It will come back, but what pisses me off, sorry for spouting the first bad word.
My spot,
Is that
no,
they don't just do it
Coca-Cola,
now?
come back. Wait,
Is that-
Nike, come
is that
back.
they don't just do it now, because I mean I am 100% sure, and you can say this is copium as much as you want. I'm 100% sure it will come back. I don't see why they don't just do it now instead
I
of
mean,
waiting.
they said something about it, right? They
Yeah,
said,
I mean, they said-
I think it was in a was it Morgan Day interview or something?
was,
He
yeah.
said something along the lines of,
10.0.
"We don't want to change it mid expansion," something
Yeah.
along those words, and I was like, that doesn't really
That-
make no sense.
that-
I mean,
that's
it's
exactly
when you
what
have to
annoys
think
me.
about it, right? It's a live game. You should be making fixes to the game that benefit the game,
Tinfoil
especially
hat.
a change like that. You can do it pretty quickly. I would imagine.
Tinfoil hat theory. Tinfoil hat theory. The reason they don't want to change it mid-expansion is because it will be a selling point for 10.0.
I guess, yeah.
I mean,
You
sure,
could-
but still, that's it's that in to me is just in bad faith. You know, I feel like if you have a good fix and you
Agreed.
they obviously agree that some sort of system of master loot coming back, you know, would be good. Why not just why tease us? And yeah, the selling point for 10.0 makes sense, but it's
I mean, I
it's
think
very
most
annoying.
people I hear people say, "Oh, I don't like Master Loot." I think people confuse Master Loot with Guild Master Loot, and I think that's like a
Yeah.
good thing that you have to really.
Obviously.
Like, I'll tell you right
yeah.
now, when I started playing the game in WoD, yeah, I hated Master Loot. Want to know why? Because I joined I joined some random pug, and it was like, oh, all my tiers reserved. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I
But
mean,
it was like-
80%
It needs to be
guild
guild.
participation.
With Guild
Yeah, so
Master
it's-
Loot, you needed 80% of the group to be from the same place in
Yeah.
order for you to actually activate Master Loot.
Yeah.
Now, what they
Yeah.
could do is they could do Guild Master Loot, and they could do fully tradable personal loot. And, that'll cause hell for us, me and Bastu.
Yeah, I mean, fully
reality is,
tradable personal loot would at least be a
stop-
step. But
stop trying to design the loot system around us. We're always gonna find something really dumb to do.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, let us suffer. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just, yeah.
Right, so we're gonna do Q&A in a couple minutes, chat. So get your questions ready for the gang. I am and tag me if you have a question for any of us. Right, just tag me so I can see it in chat easier, and I can ask and try and ask as many questions as I can. But one last question for you guys from me, and I can't remember what it is now because it's gone. Oh yeah, how much? Because okay, so you're talking about Master Loot, and TSets are coming back in 9.2, and I remember when they announced in the video of 9.2, and they announced all the systems and Zereth, Mortis, and all this stuff, and TSets were one of them. And in the video, they said, "We are so excited for TSets to finally come back," and it was like, well, you removed them. What do you mean you're excited for them to come back? Like, you removed them. So how much do you think? I need to click on that image now. How much do you think the developers are in charge of implementing these systems? A thing where conduits are randomly upgrading conduits that you will never use because you only play one specific spec? Like, how much do you think these things are developer choices, and how much of these are Bertie Big Bollocks, up at the top in the suits? Like, how much do you think this is, hey guys, we need corruption gear to be on a 5-week vendor so that they're buying 2 months of sub instead of 1. We need legendaries, 2 legendaries to be 28 days so that most people will end up having to buy a 2nd month sub. How much do you think these things are the big boys compared to the developers? Because as a developer, surely you're seeing that some of these systems are not fun, and surely you'd react to that.
Bastu, do you want to come in on that one?
No, we'll leave Bastu on that.
I don't know. Who knows? I don't want to put tinfoil hat on and say that some man or woman who has never played WoW would have any any what's the word, influence on anything. I hope it's all the devs. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, I mean, same here.
Yeah, it is one of those. I mean, you would. Yeah, it's a difficult one. It is a difficult one to come in on. I would like to think that we may see changes, but again, who knows?
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens with acquisition and whatnot. Right. You've all successfully dodged my question. I'm now going to move to. Yeah, it is.
I could spew out random stuff. You know, I could
No,
say
yeah.
it's all Bobby Kotick.
Yeah,
He
that's fair.
controls every move.
That's fair. That's fair.
All gates in WoW will now.
I don't like to point fingers at
I will say I'm not
Yeah.
going to point fingers. I will say this. I think for a very, very long time, and especially over the past, and this could be me putting my head on a pike, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think for the longest time, and if there is one thing that has been sort of like come forward over the past couple of weeks or past couple of months in regards to everything that's been going on behind the scenes and some of the horrific treatments that have been happening, is that there is. It is my belief that there is a certain old guard at Blizzard that this is the way we do things. We created World of Warcraft. This is how we do things, and that has kind of been a big voice for a very, very long time with both, at the highest level and developers potentially as well. I think that with what we've seen happening and with the changes that have happened, I think we will see changes, and I think the new developers that have come in will breathe a little bit of fresh air in, and they will have some brand new ideas. Again, I don't know if any of this is true. This is kind of how I felt reading all the news and seeing what's happened, seeing some of the stuff that has come out over the course of Shadowlands in regards to development decisions. That's just my feelings. I feel as though that there will be changes because we will have like breaths of fresh air in the development team.
Okay, right.
I did it for you, Si. I did it.
I would just say that it's clear that whatever the answer is, the work environment at Blizzard clearly has not been a good one with the allegations that have been going on, COVID had hit them, and working from home and all the challenges. So that's for sure something that I'm sure is impacting the game. Right, starting the Q&A segment. So I'm going to start us off. What do you gentlemen think about seasonal grinding? The fact that you have to go THD and farm your ruby for 80 runs already in Shadowlands, I've farmed IQD like 6 times. So we farmed it on release, and then you had to farm it again when Mythic Plus came out, and then you had to farm it again season. They made like another change where I think you then had to farm it again because they were upgradable. Then we farmed them again in 9.1, then 9.1.5 or whatever. We farm the same gear a lot. What do you guys think about seasonal grinds? THD, I'll start with you.
Look, man, I don't like this soul-letting ruby, man. It is the bane of my existence. Okay? In the first tier, in Castle Nafria, it took me 25 runs to get this thing. Okay? In the second tier, I did 25 runs in Heroic Week, and I didn't get it. So I went into Mythic without a ruby. I just had the one from Castle Nafria. And then after the tier, I farmed like 54 runs. And then I finally got it. Okay? Now you could say, well, 25 is nothing. Well, when you count the fact that during Heroic Week I'm doing a bunch of heroic splits, I found time to do 25 runs of Feeder of Pain only. And then I also got 2100 in PvP over the weekend. 25 is a good amount of time that I put into trying to get that thing. Yeah. And I just didn't get it for like a 0.5 increase, right?
So not a fan of seasonal grinds, no?
I mean, it depends, right? I don't mind going in and farming new gear from the same sources. I don't mind that at all, actually. I find that to be generally fun. What I mind is that there's no deterministic way of saying, oh, I did Feeder of Pain 25 times, right? Like, there should be a point where it's like, okay, you've done Feeder of Pain 15 times.
Pick an item.
Like, this is, like, beyond what we've expected. You get to pick something. Pick something from Feeder of Pain. You've done it 15 times.
Great Vault, Mythic Plus, let's go.
The Great Vault. Do not get me started.
What are you?
I have not seen a ruby in the Great Vault once.
Would you? So here's a kind of jumping off that. Would you say that Great Vault would be a better implementation if you could decide which dungeon it took the loot from?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that's better, right? Because it's more deterministic than now. So if you could pick the dungeon, that'd be great because I'd probably have a ruby at least on my main. That's
Copium. 252,
not
That's
246.
copium. That's copium.
And my alt, honestly, you know what I did on my alt? I do at most 4 Feeder of Pains a week, and I just use an orb from Nuzul because it's about the same,
Nice.
and that's just what I use on my alt. And I do 4. I think I've done at this point on my alt warlock, I want to say 20 to 25 Feeder of Pains around there. And it's just like you're not gonna catch me doing 54 again, like time it in 2 weeks, okay?
All right, see you in 9.2. We're gonna be counting THD. What about you, Bastu?
Raider tracks it.
Yeah, Raider. Make sure chat that you go and check THD's numbers in 9.2. All right. Yeah, Bastu. What do you think in terms of seasonal grinds?
I think like grinding for items repeatedly is just a part of the game at this point. I do wish that it was, as THD said, more deterministic. And when you compare it to stuff like TBC or Wrath of the Lich King, you obviously there's a lot more loot inside all these dungeons now, so it's a lot harder to like cherry pick what you want to farm for. And as such, it should be made more deterministic. For example, if you ran only 10 Theatres of Pain, you could only get loot from Theatre of Pain in your vault. Something like that would be good. But I don't think they'll do it. I think it's wishful thinking. It'd be very nice if they did, but I don't think they would.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all I have to say about that. So
I think you could. The way that I would implement it is, you would effectively every single time a new season starts. So going from 9.1 to 9.2, effectively what happens is the item then becomes upgradable via Valor. So you don't have to specifically run the same sort of dungeon over and over and over and over again. You just do your standard keys, and you're then able to upgrade it. I suppose the problem from that is you kind of end up in a really horrible situation where you don't technically get any quote unquote new gear from Mythic Plus. But realistically, if you're picking up the same item, you're not getting new gear from Mythic Plus anyway. You're just grinding for grinding's sake.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, I would probably say that would be the way that I would do it, where instead of it having to be targeted loot, so for example, THD doesn't have to do Theatre of Pain a million times, or anything like that. He can just do Mythic Plus as a whole, and also alongside that, uncapped Valor.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like that Valor is actually capped. Like, that's really weird to me, is whenever you're doing, like, the first week, and you have to loot an item from a 15, because if you don't loot an item from a 15, upgrading any item below that drops from a 15 is just bad, because you're going to be wasting additional Valor. That one is weird to me. I don't know why Valor is the thing you use to upgrade the item, and not the thing you use to acquire the item if it's capped. If it's uncapped, it makes sense that it's the upgrading factor. If it's capped, it makes sense that it's the thing you use to buy the item.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
That's kind of the problem, right? Valor's in like this weird spot where it's honor, but it works like conquest.
Yeah,
which makes no sense.
I honestly would like to go back to a world where Valor is something you earn and you can buy bits of gear.
Like every piece of gear is on a vendor.
Yeah,
you just
exactly.
Boom.
All I'm saying is, and I don't know whether chat would agree with me on this, all I'm saying is just make me a WoW dev. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I've just been spitting straight fire.
Nah, you came on this show today. You've done it, dude.
Be a Microsoft dev.
Yeah, Microsoft dev. There you go.
Yeah, true.
Skyrim port to your metaverse brain capsule. Now you can play Skyrim in your mind.
I can bring Master Chief into the WoW universe, finally.
As an NFT.
As an NFT?
No.
Oh my god.
No. God, no.
Dude,
right, before we get on
god, when I get world first, I'm gonna be selling the achievement as an NFT.
Oh my god. Oh my god, you actually could as well. There would be someone out there that would buy it.
Right, so I'm going to grab a question from chat. I think there's a good one on tier sets. So they're asking, what are your feelings on their attempt to make tier set drops more frequent without the use of tokens? So for anyone that doesn't know, in the new raid, so in 9.2, bosses are going to drop any boss that drops a tier is going to drop 4 tier pieces as well as their regular loot table, I believe is how it's going to be working. So just speaking generally about tier sets, what do you guys think? Are you happy with this addition of 4 pieces? I know for Bastu and THD especially, this is probably going to be a lot of stress off your shoulders, I imagine. Or
it should still just be tokens. I mean,
it should still be tokens, but this is much better.
Yeah.
Okay, this is much better. Okay, so like here's the way it worked, right? We were doing Lahuvum testing, I think it was, and then we saw these drop and we're like, whoa. We got panicked. We got scared because we're like, what? There's 8 items? Okay, so it's bonus loot. But then we were like, oh, no, it's like Shards of Domination all over again. I'm off my chair at this point. I'm gone. Shards, do not come at me with shards. I killed 30 bosses and I got 2 Shards of Domination.
Yeah,
after
you were
30 boss
lucky.
kills. Yeah. I almost killed Sylvanas week 1 with 0 Shards of Domination equipped. So that will
At least
tell you
these are
that.
tradable.
Okay? But then it became noticeable that you can actually trade it, and we're like, oh my god. You can actually trade it, which makes it so much easier, because then you realize if you fill up a normal run, but the traders, yeah, it's hell for us. But I've been saying, we don't care. We're going to do the hell stuff.
Yeah.
Okay?
I feel
You can
so
guarantee
calm.
a 4 set for every person now because it's tradable and it's bonus loot. Which
And
is,
that's the other side as well. People always turn around and they say, "Oh, this game's catering for the people doing the race to world first." It's
No.
totally not. It's totally not, because it doesn't matter what Blizzard would do. The race to world first people are still gonna do the most degen stuff they possibly can.
Master Loot would honestly almost be worse for us because we would have to make we'd make like one split, and each split you'd put 1 mail user, 1 cloth user, 1 leather user, and 1 plate user, and then you'd have 10 of those splits. So
Yeah.
it's almost worse, but we Master Loot is still much better. Guild Master Loot, sorry.
I mean,
Guild Master,
what you would use is the fully tradable personal loot.
Yeah, well, yeah.
That's a true demon one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that becomes a bit more.
And I think
dynamic, but-
myself and Sai can both attest
like,
to as
it's better.
casters. Yeah, but myself and Sai as casters for the race to world first can both attest to. We love split runs. Split runs are great fun.
Dude, I'm fine with split runs.
Lucky
I'm
you.
really good at my job. Bastu can attest to this. Like, you put me in a split run, I
Wait,
don't
whoa,
care, man.
what are you trying to say? What are you trying
No,
to say?
I'm not saying you're not, Kexman. I'm just saying, like, Sai's got to fill for 2 hours? Don't worry, dude. That's what I've been doing. I've been filling my whole life. Like, I got this. Don't worry. Go do your split runs. Sai will take care of this. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's so calming when you say THD, especially when you guys are like, hey, don't worry about the degenerate stuff. We'll take care of that. Like, it's so calming. I'm just like, oh, they're going to do it. They're gonna find a way to overcome the system. But yeah, I think I put out a tweet at some point where I said something like, the game is not designed for high-end players. It's just they know how to abuse it better than anybody else. Like, that's it,
Yeah,
right? You guys just know how to overcome.
I think anyone that believes that is definitely believing a farce, because the game is definitely not meant for high-end players. If you saw, the schedule, I don't know how it is in JG Beansworth, but in pieces, right? We have a schedule that we have from Wednesday to Tuesday night. It's literally every single hour of your day is like set where you're gonna. It literally just looks like splits, PvP with it plus splits for like the first 6 days. Yeah, we don't want to spend 7 days. Imagine, the tier is obviously very tiring. Like even from when Mythic releases, and you're going into Mythic after playing 16 hours a day, 7 days in a row of like almost very mindless and the same repeated content. It is definitely not made for us, these systems. But that's not the problem. We aren't looking for systems made for us, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think what most people confuse with that, right, is they say WoW is a game made for high-end players, but they confuse it with WoW is a game made for the high end, right? Like most things in WoW are by the patch, not by the whole game, right? Like most things are designed around being level 60 and engaging in the new content versus, it's not really designed for someone who's level 40 doing like some old raid, because that they don't care about that really right now. I mean, they might, but they haven't done anything with it in years. So obviously they focus more on the patch instead of the whole game.
Yeah, I mean, one of the questions I didn't end up getting around to, which I'm not going to ask now, but it just kind of feeds off of that THD, is I was going to say, like, the game has changed. It used to be that it took months to level to max level for the average player. Now it takes a couple days, maybe a week or something for the average player. So they've had to change the grind from leveling to systems. But yeah, it feeds into that, right? Like, there's not really, the game's not designed for that, those early levels. But yeah, just funny that you kind of mentioned that, because I was going to talk about that. Right, we'll finish up one last quick question, quick round. Cooksey said, where was it? I can't find it, but basically saying, have you guys heard of, like, or what's the most fun double legendary combination that you guys have found that's like super OP, super broken, super fun? Just any wacky things that you've found so far? I don't know who to ask first, because if you could.
Are you wacky stuff about what?
About double legendaries. Like, have you found anything that's like super busted, like a certain spec when you have this on, or something that's really
Frost Mage
fun?
and Mythic Plus.
Yeah, like Frost Mage getting infinite orbs.
I know.
I mean, if you want like if you want the next Mythic Plus banger next patch, you're gonna play THDlock and Mythic Plus. Okay, they do some demonic stuff in Mythic Plus. Also Survival Hunter. But those are like, Destro does the Giga AoE. Okay, it will annihilate anything in a circle. That circle is deleted. Okay, but its single target is in the sewer. So take what you will.
For me, I think the biggest one for me is Protection Warrior. If you end up with Reprisal alongside Necrolord and the tier 4 set, it is absolutely disgusting, and you could probably get close to 100% uptime on Necrolord banner, and probably close to 60 to 70% uptime on Avatar. It's not quite BFA levels of Protection Warrior, but it is it's looking pretty beautiful. Having the Necro Legendary as well as Reprisal alongside the tier 4 set for Protection Warriors is going to be pretty disgusting. And I think might not be perfect in raid, but I think Mythic Plus is going to be pretty solid.
Cool. Bastu, anything from you?
Well, it was just the Frost Mage thing.
Yeah, Frost Mage. Yeah, Frost Mage does look pretty good.
We have a mage in the guild called Dan, who is an old raider, and this man is a big noob, but he is managing to pull off big DPS in Mythic Plus. So if he can do it,
toxic.
then
I mean, no.
anyone can do it.
Here's the thing: Frost Mage is harder than Destruction in Mythic Plus.
Oh, okay.
Ah.
So, like, here's the thing: here's the Destruction rotation in Mythic Plus. This is the Rain of Fire keybind. You just keep going at it, and this is basically your AoE rotation. Now with Frost Mage is a little bit more intense, because with Frost Mage what you have to do, you have to press Orb and Blizzard. Okay, it's like two buttons. Okay, whereas Destro, you drop the Infernal, and then you just press Rain of Fire over and over and over again.
Well, there you have it, chat. That's your top tip for next patch 9.2. Start leveling your warlocks now. Right, cool, guys. That's where we're gonna wrap it up. Sorry I couldn't get around to tons of questions. I probably should have allowed a bit more time. I didn't know we were gonna have so many good ones, so sorry if I missed yours. But I do want to just say thank you so much to you guys being on the show today. I feel like we covered a lot of ground. I still had so many more things that I wanted to speak about, talking about other MMOs and whatnot, but I'm sure we can save it for another day. Sorry that we overran a little bit. Bastu, anything you want to say to chat before you go? Of course, guys, in chat as well, you can find everyone's like Twitter pages. Yeah, if you're on Twitter, of course, THD you stream, Kexman you stream, Bastu, I don't believe you stream. Really?
Sometimes.
Once
every blue moon.
Yeah,
there you go.
Sometimes we stream.
But you can check out, if you do exclamation mark guest chat, there you go. But yeah, anything that you want to say, Bastu, then I'll come to you, Kexman, and then THD.
No, just want to... Thanks for having me. It was enjoyable. Look forward to next tier to see how JG Beansworth can do with their... Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry, I'm being told to plug our splits. We pay a lot of gold to people to come and trade us items. We pay more than anyone else. So come to our splits and join our Discord here at discord.gg/pieces. There you go. That's
There
my
you go.
setup.
No, that's fine. That's totally fine. EU guys, pieces. Remember, pieces. 500 million gold. They got it. Excellent. Kexman, anything from you, sir?
No, not much from me. I just want to say, if you do want to follow me on Twitter, I'm like 30 followers away from 1,000. Big, absolutely huge number. Go and follow me on Twitter. But no, it was an absolute pleasure sharing the show today with some absolute gents, absolute kings here today. And want to thank everybody in chat for coming along as well.
Excellent. THD, anything from you?
Well, I gotta bring up the important subject here. Going into 9.2, Warlock's not looking too hot. Needs a few buffs. Yeah, honestly.
Oh no!
I'm just trying. Look, I'm an
I
honest
think I got something
man.
in my throat.
I'm just trying to help the developers balance the game. And right now, the Warlock class not looking too hot, especially
It would be
Affliction
a
and Destruction.
shame.
We
It would be
need
a
some
shame. It's
buffs
the
to
best
balance out the
class
meter.
ever.
You know, the meter right now, it's like, and then Warlock, you know? So we gotta move them up a little bit in order to fix up the meter for the balance and for the overall health of the game. We're just trying to help them balance, right? So
Yeah. Because on one
buff
side
Warlock.
on one side of the teeter-totter, you've got Boomkins, and on the other side, you've got Warlocks, and they need to be balanced with every other class sat in the middle.
Put them both in the bin, dude. Put them both in the bin. Warlocks, mages, rogues, boomies. Put them all in the bin.
Rogues?
Probably forgetting
Hunters and
someone.
warriors. Hunters
Rogues
and
are
warriors.
always taken to
rogues
everything.
do big single target.
When was the last? When was the last time you saw a rogue in the world?
This tier?
Yeah.
In Old Deer, I
Yes,
remember
there
seeing
wasn't
that.
a rogue
Or,
in the
dude,
World
I
Cup,
watched
was
MDI and BFA. There were 3 rogues
So-
for like 2
Oh,
years,
I know why
man.
there
Here's the
wasn't a
thing.
rogue in the world first. There would have
Yeah,
been one.
Perfecto didn't get any shards.
Yeah.
There you go.
So here's recently in my guild that we've got a rogue, and I have never seen a more degenerate opening from any class ever, because they have to switch legendaries talents in the pre-pull, and they have now figured out that if they get sacked during the pull, they actually gain something within the he gains something within the region of about 1,000 DPS if he gets sacked at the start of the pull. It's the most degenerate thing I've ever seen.
This reminds me of Demonology.
That's a problem.
Which needs to get buffed, by the way. No, why am I helping you? No.
Okay, look, I'm gonna be honest. I only said Affliction and Destruction, but Demo could receive buffs. I mean, Demo's fine, but like Affliction and Destro, they need buffs.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, won't somebody think of the Warlocks? Chat, thank you so much for tuning in today. It's been a pleasure to, Bastu, Kexman, Tishy. Thank you guys so much for coming on. This was really, really cool. And I appreciate you guys giving up your evening, or, well, your mornings, but I don't know what time you're on THD. But yeah, thank you so much. Chat, thank you so much for watching and being really pleasant in chat. I've been reading your messages and whatnot. I'm gonna stay on stream for a second, so don't go anywhere. But Bastu, Kexman, THD, you guys have a great night. Thank you for being on. I appreciate you.
Chill out.
See ya.